The clinking of silverware and soft jazz filled the dining room, that carefully curated mix of warmth and discomfort only family dinners could create. My mother sat at the far end, her pearls catching the chandelier light, her smile stretched a little too tight. My father poured himself another glass of wine, his laugh a touch louder than necessary. It had been 3 years since I'd last joined them at this table. 3 years since I'd been the fragile, uncertain version of myself. Now, I was different, calm, confident, and dressed in a navy silk blouse that cost more than my first month's rent back then. My nails, perfectly polished, tapped lightly against the stem of my glass as I listened to my brother talk about college. Everything seemed normal, until Dad leaned back in his chair, eyes glinting with something between curiosity and pride. "So," he said, cutting through the chatter, "did the money help?" The fork slipped from my hand. The room went silent. I looked up slowly. "What money?" My voice was soft, careful. But I could feel the shift, that electric crack in the air when truth is about to walk in uninvited. Mom's face went pale. Her hand froze midair, the napkin trembling between her fingers. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the next room, the faint tick of the wall clock counting down to something inevitable. My pulse thundered. "Money?" I searched my mother's eyes for an explanation, but she wouldn't look at me. That was the moment I knew. This dinner wasn't about family. It was about a secret I was never supposed to find out. I was 22 when I walked out of that house for the first time, carrying everything I owned in a single black duffel bag and a heart heavy with words I couldn't unsay. Back then, I thought love meant approval, that if I worked hard enough, dressed the way Mom liked, and followed Dad's advice, they'd finally see me. But the night everything cracked, I realized love in our family came with conditions. It started in the living room. My laptop open, my dreams laid bare. "I got accepted," I said, trembling with excitement. "The design firm in New York, they want me as a junior associate." Dad didn't look up from his newspaper. "That's not a career, Emma. That's a hobby." Mom sighed, adjusting the cuff of her blouse. "Sweetheart, those kinds of jobs don't last. You need stability. Maybe take a position at your uncle's office, something secure, something safe, something small." "I don't want safe," I whispered. "I want mine." The argument spiraled, raised voices, sharp edges. Dad accused me of being ungrateful. Mom said I was chasing fantasies. And when I asked for a small loan to help me move, Dad's face hardened. "We're not wasting money on mistakes," he said. That word, wasting, stuck like glass in my chest. I remember running upstairs, stuffing clothes into my bag, my vision blurred with tears. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Grandma June. Her voice, soft and steady, felt like a blanket around my shaking heart. "I heard," she said quietly. "Let them be wrong, honey. You just go live." Before hanging up, she told me to check the drawer of her old sewing table. Inside, wrapped in a handkerchief, was a silver locket, small, simple, engraved with a single word, "Enough." I remember holding it in my palm, feeling its cool metal press into my skin as if branding the message onto me. That night, I walked out the front door, without looking back. The porch light flickered once, like a final warning. The air was cold, sharp, full of everything I didn't know yet, but I clutched that locket, whispering the word over and over. Enough. And for the first time, I almost believed it. New York didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with rain, rejection emails, and a roommate who bailed 2 weeks into the lease. The walls of my tiny studio apartment were thin enough to hear every argument next door, and the only furniture I had was a mattress, a thrifted desk, and a dream that refused to die quietly. I worked mornings at a cafe, evenings as a receptionist, and somewhere in between, I designed posters, mock logos, whatever small gigs I could find online. My hands were always stained with ink or coffee, but I didn't care. I was building something, even if no one saw it yet. There were nights I'd cry quietly, holding Grandma's locket in my palm. It became my ritual, whispering enough before every client call, Every failed pitch, every lonely meal. Everything changed the day I met Elaine Harper. She was a senior creative director at a boutique agency, sharp-eyed, effortlessly elegant, and terrifying in the best way. I'd shown up to an open design event she hosted, clutching my cheap printed portfolio. I expected to be ignored. Instead, she stopped, flipped through my work, and said, "You've got guts.
And taste.
That's rare." She offered me an internship the next day. Working under Elaine was like surviving a storm and learning to love the thunder. She demanded perfection, but taught me to find beauty in failure. "Don't apologize for wanting more," she'd say, handing me another impossible project. Months turned into years. I learned how to pitch to clients twice my age, how to stand tall in rooms that didn't expect women to lead. Every late night at the agency felt like a step closer to the version of myself I used to only imagine. My first real break came with a campaign I designed for a small skincare brand. It went viral. For the first time, people were saying my name, not as someone's daughter, but as a designer worth knowing. From there, I saved every dollar I could, eating instant noodles and thrift store pasta for dinner. By the time I turned 28, I had enough to start Harper & Lane, a small creative firm Elaine encouraged me to open. She became my silent partner, my mentor, and the kind of role model I wished my mother had been. Clients came slowly at first, word of mouth, small contracts. But within 2 years, we were profitable. I hired a small team, then doubled it. My work appeared in magazines my parents used to read. Online, I kept things vague. A few photos of sunsets, lattes, and the occasional work desk. I never mentioned my title, my office, or my success. When Mom called every few months to check in, I always said the same thing. "I'm doing fine." Because I was. But sometimes, when I hung up the phone, I wondered why she never asked how. That silence, I would later realize, held its own secret. One that was sitting at that family dinner table years later, just waiting to explode. The silence after Dad's question was suffocating. My sister's fork clinked against her plate, the sound small but deafening. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm but edged. "I'm sorry, what money are you talking about?" Dad looked at me, puzzled, as if I'd forgotten something obvious. "The money we gave you when you left," he said slowly. $76,000. Your mother said it helped you get on your feet." My stomach dropped. The air left the room. "What?" I turned to Mom. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. You said you'd given it to her," Dad continued, his tone shifting from confusion to realization. "Don't tell me." Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. I thought she knew," she whispered. A sharp laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "Knew what?" "That you were sitting on $76,000 while I was sleeping on a mattress I found on the curb." My voice cracked but didn't break. The truth was too raw to dress up. Dad's face turned red. "Are you saying you never got it?" "Never saw a dime," I said. My heartbeat was so loud I could barely hear myself. Every meal, every rent check, every design pitch, I built all of it on my own. The weight of my words hung in the air. Mom's napkin slipped from her lap to the floor, but she didn't move to pick it up. "Where did the money go, Mom?" My voice softened, but it carried more power than shouting ever could. She swallowed hard. "It was supposed to be for you, but after you left so suddenly, your father said you'd come back. I kept it just in case." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You what?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I was scared. I thought she'd fail. I thought she'd need saving." I stood slowly, feeling the years of pain, the nights I'd gone hungry, the mornings I'd fought to keep believing in myself, all of it rising inside me like fire finally finding air. "Well," I said quietly, "I did fail. 100 times. But I didn't need saving. I needed support." The words sliced through the air. I took a deep breath, straightened my blouse, and finally let them see me. Not the girl who left, but the woman who came back stronger. "Since you're curious," I said, a calm smile tugging at the corner of my lips, "the money didn't help. But I did." Dad frowned. "What do you mean?" I glanced around the room, at the art on the walls, the polished floors, the subtle luxury that surrounded me. This house, I said softly, is nice. But the agency I run now? It's worth 5 of these. Their eyes widened. I own Harper & Lane, I continued. We design for Fortune 500s. My team's growing faster than I can hire. Mom covered her mouth. My sister blinked, stunned. I looked right at Mom. So no, the money didn't help. Because I never got it. What helped was losing it, because it made me fight for something no one could ever take from me. Silence again. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was stunned. Powerful. Dad leaned back, rubbing his temples. Emma, I don't even know what to say. I gave a small, almost gentle smile. That's okay, Dad. I didn't either. For years. And then I reached into my bag and placed Grandma June's silver locket on the table between us. It glimmered under the chandelier light, that single word etched across its surface. Enough. For the first time in my life, they seemed to. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the faint hum of the chandelier above us, swaying slightly in the still air. Mom's eyes stayed fixed on the locket, her expression softening from guilt to something that almost looked like regret. Dad finally exhaled and said quietly, Emma, I didn't know. I swear I didn't. His voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. I believe you, I said. But the truth still happened. He nodded slowly, shame written in the lines of his face. You shouldn't have had to do that alone. No, I agreed, but I did. And maybe that's what saved me. Mom's tears finally fell. I was trying to protect you, she whispered. I thought if you struggled, you'd come home. I didn't want to lose you. You didn't lose me because I left, Mom, I said softly. You lost me because you didn't trust me. The words hung in the air, gentle but unflinching. Dad cleared his throat. Your brother's been talking about transferring schools. He's got potential, but tuition's expensive. We were wondering. I held up a hand, stopping him before he could finish. I'll help him, I said. But this time, things will be different. Mom looked up, startled. Different how? I'll pay his tuition, I said, directly to the school. In return, he has to keep his grades up, get a part-time job, and call me once a week, not to ask for money, but to talk. Really talk. My brother nodded quickly, eyes wide. I will. I promise. Then I turned to Mom. And you? My tone softened. You're going to stop managing everyone else's future. Let people make mistakes. Let them fall. That's how we grow. She swallowed, her lip trembling. I can try. Good, I said. Because trying is more than you ever allowed me. Dad gave a small, sad smile. And me. I met his gaze. You stop using silence as a shield. You don't have to fix everything. Just listen. He nodded, eyes glistening. I can do that. The tension began to dissolve. Not completely, but enough for air to move again. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of years finally lifting from my shoulders. This isn't revenge, I said softly. It's balance. We can start over, but only if honesty is the rule this time. Mom reached across the table, her hand trembling as it found mine. For the first time in forever, I didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said. And I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means we build differently now. The locket sat between us, catching the light, the same word that had carried me through every dark night now bridging the gap that once tore us apart. Enough. And for the first time, it wasn't just about me. A few weeks later, the sharp edges of that dinner began to fade into something softer, like a scar that still ached when touched, but no longer bled. It was a Saturday morning when Mom showed up at my apartment, clutching a homemade pie and looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes darted around my space, the tall windows, the art on the walls, the quiet hum of a home built by my own hands. It's beautiful, she murmured. Thank you, I said, setting out coffee for both of us. The awkwardness between us wasn't gone, but it was manageable, like walking on new ground, careful but hopeful. She sat at the counter, fidgeting with her napkin. "You know," she began, "when you left, I used to stand by your door and wait for you to come back. Every night for months. I thought if I could just keep that money safe, you'd need it. You'd need me." I swallowed hard. "I always needed you, Mom. Just not to save me, to believe in me." Her eyes filled with tears. She reached across the counter, and this time when she took my hand, it felt different, not controlling, not desperate. Just real. We talked for hours, about Grandma June, about dreams, about fear. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that was a start. Later, after she left, I stood by the window, sunlight spilling across my desk. The locket rested there, right beside my laptop, the same one I'd used years ago to send out hundreds of unanswered job applications. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers, the silver warm from the light. "Enough." Grandma's voice echoed in my mind, soft and steady. "When they finally see your worth, don't shrink, shine." I smiled, watching the city's skyline shimmer beyond the glass. My brother was thriving at school now, sending me updates every week. Dad had started calling too, not to fix, not to advise, just to listen. And Mom, she was learning. Slowly. Genuinely. The past didn't vanish, but it stopped defining me. I'd built something stronger. Not just a career, but a version of myself no betrayal could undo. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I'm finally home." Then, with a quiet laugh, I added, "I used to think $76,000 could change my life. Turns out, the real fortune was learning I was already enough." And just like that, the story that began in silence ended in strength.